now. Hello, my name is Alun, and this evening at my time, I'm facilitating a session of Achtung, Cthulhu Dark. This is my game built on the Cthulhu Dark mechanisms, which has tweaked and twisted those rules for play in a World War II espionage environment where the Cthulhu mythos, the occult, and the supernatural are real. What this means, I guess, is that we are playing in a World War II where the Nazi threat is not just in terms of aeroplanes, tanks, and ideology. It is about their desire to learn more about and control the occult, the supernatural, and the Cthulhu mythos. If you're looking for a touchstone, then I guess that the gaming touchstones are games such as Achtung Cthulhu by Modiphius and World War Cthulhu by Cubicle 7. The rules also include some steals of ideas from Mark Diaz Truman's Cartel Quick Start around stress relief. And it also uses a kind of forged in the dark approach to equipment and load. I should say that this game is being run as part of the Gauntlet RPG calendar. If you don't know about the Gauntlet, you should find out. Ideally, subscribe to the Gauntlet's Patreon, because that Patreon would not just give you priority access to games like this, but it gives you a monthly magazine called Codex, which is getting bigger and bigger and better and better. It helps keep the Gauntlet podcasts, podcast Plus One Forward, Fear of the Black Dragon, the new Trophy AP podcasts going. And of course, it is supporting the efforts of the Gauntlet to begin publishing games. Most recently, the successful Kickstarter for Hearts of Wulin and Trophy, which is where the Trophy AP podcast is coming from. So the setup for this game is that it is February 1941. And Britain has been at war since 1939, and frankly, the British have been British Empire and Dominion forces have been on the back foot throughout that period. The Germans dominate Europe, and the Italians just before Christmas in the autumn invaded Egypt. Egypt, a vital stopping place for the British, connecting Europe and the home front with significant parts of the empire, as was India and indeed Australia and New Zealand. So, but the good news is that in February 1941, in North Africa, the British, Indian, and then Australian and New Zealand forces threw back the Italians who were pressing forward from Libya into Egypt, and have largely defeated the Italian army in North Africa. It's almost as though the Italians are about to break. It could almost mean they lose the war. That's the background, but this is about a mission to interrogate a captured Italian intelligence officer. He was taken prisoner during the advance and is going on about the coming of the end. And we'll explore what that means in terms of the game shortly. So there's concept and aim. Tone. Look, we have Nazis, Cthulhu, the occult. So it is inevitable, really, that this game could get a bit dark and foreboding. How dark will depend how far the players approach the game, but it must be said that this is, while it can get quite pulpy, because any game with machine guns and Nazis has that possibility, and I want to indulge and encourage that kind of action. It is basically a pretty dangerous game for characters. Like any game based on Cthulhu mythos, the fate of the characters is pretty poor, and these rules are not a lot more forgiving. So I guess that if humour does crop up in this game, it is more likely to be of a gallows variety. And sometimes laughter's a relief. So if it does seem like it's getting tense, then by all means we can just call a timeout, just get it out, and then go back to the serious business of defeating the Nazi threat. In terms of subject matter, this involves occult activity of our fictionalized Third Reich. Now I need to be very clear here that the activities of the real Nazi regime that took over Germany in the 30s are well known. And by adding aspects of the occult and supernatural to that mix, I think I speak for us, we are in no way seeking to trivialize those real and terrible events. So given the nature of the material, we will be respectful of the history. But we'll also be careful to use some safety tools to make sure that we stay in a place where we are hopefully a bit disturbed in a good way, but not in a bad way. So we're playing with the X card. All these players have played with me before, and they probably heard me say that I tend not to monitor the chat very effectively. So the best way to call the X card on me is to make it very obvious. If you do put it in the chat and I don't appear to react to it, please, one of the other players just pick it up and say, "Whoa, X card." That's a way of just putting a break on the action. I will not ask the reason that someone has called the X card. I may ask how far back in the fiction they want me to go, to rewind, to go forward in a way that I can avoid what they found uncomfortable or disturbing. We'll be playing with the Gauntlet Code of Conduct, which I summarize very simply as don't be a dick. And I know these players very well, so I know that's not a risk. We're also playing with an open door. What that means is that if something comes up while we're playing and you have to step away from the game, anybody, me or the players, that's fine. We hope you'll come back. But if stuff happens in the real world, you have to react to it. So the open door is there for a reason. If this doesn't turn out to be the game that you hoped it was going to be and you're not having fun, there is nothing pinning you to the game. The open door is there to use. If it's not the game for you, if you're not enjoying it, if it's going the wrong way, I will hopefully check in at intervals and check that it's the right kind of game. But if it isn't, this is about having fun collectively. So the open door is there for a reason. We'll also be playing with lines. Lines are those things that will not come up in the fiction. And I start with 3. Graphic depiction of Nazi atrocities. Inevitably, we all have those in our heads, but that's the place they stay. They add a context for the game. They're not something that we put out on the table. I have a line on sexual violence and a line on violence against children. It's conceivable that some of that will crop up as an implied threat, but let's be careful about that as well. If there aren't any other lines, then I'm directing the players at the Lines and Veils tab, which has a range of lines and veils offered, along with a range of blank spaces and put stuff in. If there's anything that any of them want to add as a line or a veil, then that's what that page is for. Add it in, I'll review it before we get properly going. Veils are stuff that could happen in the fiction, but we won't see it on screen. The curtain will be drawn across. And for me, that's sex. Sex can happen in the game, but we will draw a discrete veiled curtain across it and move on with the plot. We may deal with the consequences of it. We may deal with fallout from it, but we won't see the gritty detail on screen. So that's my introduction, I guess. Now I'd like to just ask the players to say hello. I'll go in order of character keeper if that's okay. Starting. Don't tell me about the characters yet. Oh, I tell you what, yeah, tell me who you're playing, but don't tell me much about them, because I'd like to work through that with all of you as we work our way through the character sheets. So, Will, say hello and tell us who your character is today.
Hi, my name is Will. My pronouns are he, him, and I am playing Arthur Blake, who is returning to World War II. in the second of his operations as part of Achtung, Cthulhu Dark.
Yes, last seen in the field on the beaches of Dunkirk, I think. Paul, say hello and just tell us who your character is.
Hello, I am Paul, pronouns he, him, and the character I'm playing is Wilbur Strauss.
Also, I think, last seen on the beaches of Dunkirk.
Indeed.
Probably trying to keep Arthur Blake out of trouble. First-time player of Achtung Cthulhu Dark. Blake, say hello and tell us who you're playing.
G'day, I'm Blake, he, him. I'm playing Henry Wright.
Of whom more later. And finally, Leandro, say hello and tell us who you're playing.
Hi, my name is Leandro. I use he, him pronouns, and for this series of Achtung Cthulhu Dark, I'm playing Avery Carlyle, who, maybe we'll last see them in the sands of Egypt. Maybe they might escape from Egypt, but given the warnings of how harsh some of these games could be, we'll see. We'll play to find out.
Absolutely, we certainly will. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to find out what kind of character each of you is playing, and then ask some questions about them. So let's go back, Will, to Arthur Blake. So what is Arthur's wartime role? What does that mean? And what did he do before the war?
So Arthur Blake is the educated advisor during the war. He is an expert in matters related to the mythos and other supernatural or occult activity. He is a full member of the Pursuivants, the occult agency, the British intelligence. Predates British intelligence by some range, but he was a former Oxford academic who was recruited into MI6 along with most of the upper crust to provide military intelligence at the outbreak of the war, and then fell into the Pursuivants thanks to his esoteric interests, which previously linked him to other characters who may have lived during previous games of Achtung Cthulhu Dark and gone insane and become antagonists.
Yes, we'll say more of that. No more of that. So just so I'm clear, he was recruited directly to the Pursuivants. Just for our visiting viewers, His Majesty's Pursuivants have been protecting the realm from the occult and supernatural since 1558, when Elizabeth I granted them a charter so to do. And they are indeed Britain's occult intelligence service. So straight into the Pursuivants, no kind of side trip into MI6 or...
I think he was maybe like on a desk in MI6, like he was part of that sort of pool, but the Pursuivants pulled him out the second that they found out about his connections to, the esoteric world that they were already interested in.
Okay, thank you for that. Tell me how does he look? Describe yourself as others see you, Arthur.
So Arthur is he's a bookworm. He's not a strapping young bloke, but he is, fairly well put together. Studious, somber. He was previously, a rather timid academic, but his experiences in Dunkirk, alongside Sergeant Wilbur Strauss, have toughened him up somewhat. Especially his use of some of the what are they called, invocations that he has acquired, and putting practical magic to use has shown him that reality is maybe not as tough and resilient as he hoped. So now he is somewhat haunted and somber compared to his usual.
We'll come back to that haunting in a moment then. This is a new question for Arthur. Who's he left behind?
Who's he left behind? I think he's left his young wife behind. Back up in Yorkshire, far away from the war. I think the nature of Arthur's work and the impossibility of knowing just quite how the occult might work means that he is kept further away from his family than you would normally expect of someone when they're stationed back in the UK.
What's her name?
Let's say her name is Evelyn.
Any children?
One on the way, actually.
Gosh. And he's off to North Africa. Okay. Moving along. Wilbur. Tell us a bit about Wilbur.
Wilbur Strauss, a Cockney through and through, grew up on the streets of London as a criminal in the interwar years, then became a copper, realised that there was a hard ceiling due to his social standing and his criminal past. So when war broke out, joined the war in the foot guards, progressed slowly to the rank of sergeant, and then one fateful day in Dunkirk got involved with Arthur Blake and a few others. And at the end of that, was moved out of the guards into more of a direct role with Mr. Turing and the Pursuivants, and now he finds himself back in a military situation.
Thank you. Describe yourself as others see you and say who you left behind.
Okay, so we got a guy that's 44, quite weathered, clearly quite a hard life, smoker, and got quite a large scar down his face, which he picked up in Dunkirk. So got a bit of a droopy eye on one side. And the person he's left behind is his partner in crime, who was also pensioned out of the forces. That's his friend Bertie Wooster, who he's left behind. Mr. Turing's decided that Bertie should continue in more covert operations while I've been drafted back into uniform.
Thank you. Moving along, Henry Wright. What's your role in the war, and what did you do before the war?
So Henry grew up in Sussex. He was learning to be a medical doctor at Oxford, and in the spare time he was a scout leader for adventurers, which are like late teens, so older than scouts but younger than rovers. That's most of his time there.
And what's his role in the war, in the secret war?
Yeah, so like recon, mapping, scouting out stuff, seeing who's doing what where, and making sure we know and they don't.
Okay, and describe yourself as others see you, and then tell me who you left behind.
Fairly tall, lean, he's sort of fit build. He's got sort of piercing eyes. Fairly short hair, I think. Probably have a light tan since he's been in adventurers. He's done a fair bit of running around the countryside. Who did he leave behind? His adventurers troop, I guess. Out of study, they were his friends, even though, they're obviously younger than him, but yeah, someone to talk to. It's like they were all his apprentices.
So has he always been more comfortable with younger people rather than older people?
It's really less stressful because he's studying to be a doctor, so it's kind of work, then yeah.
So it's just the absence of time, really, to build relationships with older people.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Avery. Tell us about Avery, Leandro.
Yeah, so Avery's wartime role is Competent Sparks, which is described as the essential link between Britain and secret networks behind enemy lines, including this team, which is helpful because Avery, where he came from an old money industrious family. Imagine, it's quite a privileged upbringing, honestly. Imagine growing up in like an old mansion full of like weird secrets and parents clinging on to past glories that they can't really talk about because it's all hush hush. top secret stuff. This whole great game has been going on since the 19th century and whatnot, and his family profited off that. So that's how he kind of learned the trade of being part of connecting folks with other secret networks. And I guess to describe what he looks like, he looks like late 20s, quite effete. I'm imagining if I have to face cast him as someone, it'll be the actor Ezra Miller, kind of like really kind of like a soft elfin kind of face, but with like sharp cheekbones and long dark hair. He really looks like someone who could only belong in a mansion that's crumbling and it's full of ghosts, but instead he's out here in the field, making sure that the rest of the team are just making sure things are going well, I guess, in these missions. He usually keeps to himself. He gives off a mysterious air, I would say.
Yeah, because I'm just curious. When you say the family's been involved in the great game of espionage maybe since the latter half of the 1800s, perhaps. This could be 2, 3, maybe 4 generations in. Was that espionage in the traditional sense, or was that occult intelligence?
Everyone's led to believe it was the former. It was only until he was kind of like blackmailed into working for the Pursuivants that he found out, they were also involved in the latter.
That is a segue I can't avoid following up then. Because one of the questions I'm going to ask you is, why did you join the Secret War? And you have indeed chosen blackmail. So there are things that, if revealed, would ruin your reputation and or threaten those you love. Who are they? I've just noticed I've misspelt that on the character sheet. Who are they, and what do they know about you?
Yeah, not sure exactly there. I don't think it's a Pursuivants as a whole. I think there's an inner group in there who know of my family. In fact, probably an ancestor of mine has been part of this inner circle. Tentatively, I'm calling them the Dreamers, because they dream of England's future. That's a working title name for now. They know that I have an illegitimate daughter that I desperately want to meet.
Right. And if I flip back and say, so who did you leave behind? Is that the daughter?
Yes.
How old is she?
She's 5 years old. And quite sweet and deserves better.
Okay, so if you would just give me a pen picture in the bit of the character sheet that says who are they and what do they know about you, I am reminded of the fact that rumours persist that a splinter group within the Pursuivants was responsible for a British vampire program in the late 1800s, early 1900s. There's nothing written down about it, but I just thought I'd throw that one in. Let me work my way back now then, asking that same question. So in terms of Henry Wright, why did you join the Secret War, Henry?
Are you talking about Cthulhu in reference to the Secret War, or?
Yes. Well, I guess, why have you ended up in any kind of espionage? Why aren't you just, conscripted on the front line? So what drove you to say yes when you got the tap on the shoulder?
He doesn't, if he's not being useful or feeling useful, he doesn't know what to do with himself.
I get that, but I noticed that you've, in response to that question on the sheet, you've said my country right or wrong.
Because he's lost without a sense of purpose and without. I think, he just thinks that's the best way to help. But he can help it in as many ways as possible, as a doctor, as a recon, as a fighting the arcane spirits out there or whatever. So,
is it God, king, or country that comes first in that list?
Probably the other way around, because he can tangibly help the country and then the king and then God in that sense. So, because I don't think he would have experienced much of the Cthulhu stuff yet. So it may turn the other way around, but so far it's been it. Yeah.
Okay. And what would it take to betray that belief in country?
Yeah, if it turned out a portion or a small or large portion of the British military was working with the Nazis or the Cthulhu cult or whatever, then he would probably lose his shit.
What would that look like if he lost his shit? Breakdown or what? I'm just curious.
It depends on the situation. It would either be that or berserk.
So not a good thing.
No.
Okay. That is helpful. Moving back along. Now, because Wilbur and Arthur have been in the Secret War before, so to speak, in a formal way, I just want to check in whether the reasons that they joined the Secret War are still the same. So Wilbur, why did you join the Secret War?
Money. Some men fight for king, some men fight for the god, some men fight for loved ones. I fight for a shitload of cash, and that's what Mr. Turin's promised me.
So the king's head on any denomination would do nicely, thank you very much. What things do you value more than anything or anyone in terms of that greed? I.e., what is most tempting to Wilbur?
Gold. Paper money, it's still paper, but a shitload of real gold. That's what he likes.
Fine. So portable wealth. I can work with that. Arthur, have your motives changed since Dunkirk?
No, I think he's still driven by the allure of the blasphemous unknown, more so than he ever has been before, now that he's got a chance to get up close and personal with it. I think he would still give up everything other than betraying his country or his family, now that we've established that he has a family. But I think he would die for, he feels very strongly that the powers and the secrets that are out there are the way to keep, his family safe and his country safe, because otherwise the Germans will get hold of them.
So kind of mutually assured possession.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yes, I think we can have a bit of fun with that. So your family is the most important thing then, even more important than the temptation of the blasphemous unknown.
Yes, but only in the sense of, if you were to put the choice between them and the blasphemous unknown, then he would choose them rather than hurt them. But he would die to pursue it if he felt that was in the aim of protecting them.
Okay. There are a couple other questions, but I'm going to deal with those in play, I think, once we got a sense of these characters together. So, if you would just like to have a look at the tab for the London briefing, because I just want to set the scene here. So it is the middle of February, and Blue Dragon Pursuivant plans to brief you this morning. So, can I ask, Arthur, what, as you make your way through London towards St. Paul's and the bunker beneath the Royal College of Arms where the Pursuivants are based, what do you notice that is a reminder of normality at a time of war?
I think I notice children playing in the street.
And those children, are they, they're just kicking a ball about, just having fun?
Yeah. Well, I think they're sort of chasing each other up and down. They've clearly been sent out to do errands by their family, but they've bumped into each other and now they're having a bit of a a DOS, basically.
Yeah. In and out perhaps the gap tooth street where a bomb has gone off and leveled a house. What does it remind you of?
It reminds me of Evelyn and our child to be, and I hope that when they play in these streets, I hope that they can play in these streets. I hope these streets still stand and they haven't been destroyed by Jerry or turned into the far worse things I know are lying out there.
Do you think you live to see that?
One can hope, boy, dear boy. One can hope.
Okay, would you roll for stress, please?
Sure.
In the face of that harsh reality?
1.
Stress does not go up. Stress is currently 1. It would only go up if it exceeded 1. Okay, let's move along.
That might actually be the only time I've ever passed a stress roll in this game.
Yeah, it won't last. Wilbur, what do you notice that is a reminder of war as you make your way from the East End into the city for this briefing? Are you in uniform, by the way?
No, I think at this stage I will still be in my undercover. So greased back hair, clean shaven at this stage. Overcoat. It's quite cold this time of year. So
Nice hat.
I'm not in uniform. So the thing that reminds me of the horror of war is I pass a building that has only recently been bombed in last night's bombing raid by the Germans, and I can see there's clearly the air raid people and the fire brigade, London Fire Brigade, digging through the brickwork, and then they're pulling out a body on a stretcher of the young woman.
Which person from your past does it remind you of?
It reminds me of my sister, who died at the start of the German bombing raids on London, not too long ago, really. So I've lost my mother in the First World War to a bombing raid, and my sister in the start of the Second World War.
What a sad history. A shame that has reminded you. Would you roll for stress, please?
6. There we go.
There's the soft spot in Wilbur. Female members of his family. Fine. Increase stress by 1, please. Moving along, Henry. Henry, what do you notice as you make your way to this briefing that is a reminder of that London is at war?
There's just soldiers at some of the street corners, just generally looking around, or home guard, I guess you'd call them, just keeping an eye on things. And it's like there's like an aura of quiet around them, but a bit further away there's the kids playing or whatever. But it's a borrowed piece sort of thing.
What do you notice? What makes you think that these home guard that are and air raid wardens wouldn't stand a chance if the Germans arrive tomorrow?
I think some seem a bit nervous and some seem a bit bored. They don't seem like they've actually seen real action. They're just not really sure what they're doing.
Could you do more good here than with the Pursuivants?
Me? No, I'm not a full-on soldier.
Are you ashamed of that? No better than the old men and young boys of the Home Guard?
Oh, here I'm looking forward to going on a mission because I know I can actually put my skills to use. So
first mission.
Yeah, I think so.
Roll for stress, please.
So it's just the white and the green one?
Just the green one. Just the green one.
Sorry. That one. 6. Sweet.
Would you increase stress by 1, please? Finally, Avery. As you're making your way to the briefing in the city, where did you stay last night? With all your money.
Well, turns out that even through thick and thin, the local gentleman's club, which should give a name to the figure out a name, so it has to be something properly pretentious. Has been doing its wartime duty by letting its its most valued subscribers is not the word, but its most valued patrons have some room and board. And honestly, if you go inside, you barely know the war is happening. Honestly, they've made they've really pulled out the stops in terms of making sure that our most favored patrons have a place in the city that's free of stress, so to speak.
What did you see that confirmed to you that they're actually managing to keep these standards only by resorting to the black market?
Yeah, I think like Avery is probably one who, because of where he's working now, he knows that like this is all a bubble because I'm waiting to burst. So I think there's like a moment where he kind of like takes a wander around these like halls and he spies like a door that's ajar towards where the kitchen areas, where the storage areas are, and I think he hears like arguments between like the manager and some of the workers and the couriers, and you just hears that but it's the most frivolous stuff, like we're running out of deviled eggs, the horror. This particular vintage of wine, we're down to like our last 2 bottles. How terrifying. And I think like you can hear the manager talking about how they've had to deal with the folks who are handing out the ration cards or forging ration cards and talking to the underground, and it's all just so much just to keep what up, just to keep what sort of pretense up.
What does that make you feel about your position of privilege?
Makes him feel oily. I think it makes him really want to take a bath right now.
Well, I tell you what, instead of that, would you like to roll for stress?
Sure. I mean, I don't know. Can I not? No, I'm kidding. I'll roll. Sorry, you asked it so nicely. I rolled a 4, so that goes up by 1, I suppose.
It does. Okay, so the Royal College of Arms. You make your way down to the sub-basement where the Pursuivants have been based since certainly the restoration of Charles II, if not before. Brick-lined basement, vaulted, lights strung along the ceilings, to a rather pleasantly appointed room with wood paneling, a chair, and some slides, a slideshow. And there is Blue Dragon Pursuivant, who in this version of the world is being played by a middle-aged John Mills. And this is February. In September, he gives you a quick briefing of where we've got to in terms of the war. The Italians declared war in September and immediately invaded Egypt. Mussolini has been after a North African empire, extending his North African empire for a decade, and takes this opportunity to invade Egypt. Not quite a British possession, but certainly the most influential country in Egypt is Britain. And they make some progress. They get 50 miles into Egypt before they break for Christmas. And then in December, British and Indian forces attack them. And there's a pursuit along the coast as one Italian position after another is just knocked over through December, to the point that by January, with the Australians and the New Zealanders now fully in hue and cry after them, the Italians have got as far as Benghazi in Libya, and are continuing to head then further west, pursued by the Australians and New Zealanders, only to find that the 7th Armoured Division, the Desert Rats, have crossed the desert behind them, headed them off, and cut them off at Baie de Forme, where tens of thousands of Italians surrender. And Blue Dragon says, I forgive me for the history lesson, gentlemen, but I just wanted to make clear where we come in. It turns out that among the Italian prisoners taken at Baie de Forme is a chap called Giovanni Ricci, a lieutenant in Italian military intelligence, as far as we can gather. But he was captured while a patient in a field hospital, where initial thought was shell shock. He was evacuated back to Cairo with the other serious Italian injured and wounded. But we've got a casual, someone who we occasionally inquire after, serving as a medic in Cairo. And he's telegraphed to tell us that this chap is rarely lucid, but when he is, he talks about a joint Italian-German expedition set up a desert airfield. Now that would normally just be military intelligence business, but then he goes to talk about the things he saw there that mean that the end is coming. Now again, pretty thin, gentlemen, pretty thin. But then we did get a heads up that a chap called Klaus Muller had been spotted in Vichy French North Africa, in Tunisia, and he was heading east to Benghazi, which is where Ricci was captured. Professor Klaus Muller is, we believe, a close confidant of Himmler. And you'll know from your overarching briefing that Himmler is, we believe, the head of Projekt Prometheus. That part of the Nazis' peculiar fascination in the occult, that following operations at Dunkirk, and he nods to Smith as to Strauss and Blake, and some operations by Czech resistance, we are pretty certain holds more than just an interest in the occult. So Muller is in North Africa. We believe he's too close to Himmler not to know about Projekt Prometheus. And he was in Benghazi, we believe, at the same time as Ricci. We need someone to have a proper go at the dear lieutenant and find out exactly what he does know, and then follow up as necessary. Any questions at this point, gentlemen?
As necessary, sir. If we locate Mr. Muller, what are your orders?
Well, principally, we need to know what they're up to.
Of course, sir, of course. But I mean...
And if they're up to dirty doings, Blake, then I'm sending Mr. Strauss with you to make sure that they stop.
Quite right, sir.
Any other questions,
Do we
gentlemen?
have a copy of the medical records? Do we have a copy of that?
I'm afraid not. Telegram came in last week. The best we can do is to try to get you there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Will we have any? Will we have any papers on the ground? We'll be able to request any help from the.
Oh yes.
There.
You'll be using special operations executive cover. The chap in there, Tubby Birmingham. Don't know much about him, frankly. Old Middle East hand. Been out there, well, since Adam was a boy. But he'll sort you out billets, liaison, the rest of it.
Good show, sir.
Once you get there, you just need to find the Rustum building in Cairo. That's where his operation is based. He's been briefed to provide all necessary support.
No problem, sir. We'll have this fucker singing like a canary in no time.
Sergeant Strauss, what if I told you about your language around Blue Dragon?
Oh, sorry.
My apologies, sir.
We'll just have him singing in no time then.
Yes, Strauss, we do have standards, you know.
Sometimes you've got to crack a few eggs.
Well, if there are no further questions, then there is a troop ship leaving from Glasgow in 2 days' time. You will go with it. It's mid-February now. We would hope to get you there by the end of March.
Quite right, sir. Sooner we're on our way, sooner we can get back home.
Indeed.
Couple of months on a dirty, sweaty sock ship. That is just what I ordered.
Well, I am sorry, Mr. Strauss, that we cannot reach the high standards to which your experience has prepared you.
Anything
there will be
but sweaty
2,000
socks.
men going with you, with a very good chance of dying on the front line. So please, Mr. Strauss, accept these difficult circumstances with your normal grace.
That I will.
If I may, sir, and Blake nods at the two new members of our team. Have Mr. Wright and Mr. You know, the problem with being posh British is use people's last names rather than their first names, isn't it? So I need to look up Avery's last name. If Mr. Carlyle. Yes, have they been briefed on the nature of our interest?
They've been through the standard induction at Bletchley Park, as you did last summer, Blake.
Indeed, sir.
But it is fair to say that that this is their first operational deployment. But I have every confidence that Mr. Carlyle will keep up a very strong family tradition and not let the side down. And Mr. Wright comes with a happy combination of expertise that we are very pleased to have on the team. But I'll let you get on with getting to know one another. I have another appointment. If there are no questions...
God save the king, sir.
Indeed. And the Queen. And he gestures up at the wall where beside a portrait of George VI is a portrait of Elizabeth I.
I think Avery's just been smoking this whole time, and he's just going to tip the ashes of his cigarette on an ashtray.
As you file out, as you're escorted out by his assistant, he'll just put his hand on Avery's shoulder and say, Avery, how is your father?
Oh, he's doing well, sir. He sends his regrets that he has not as much to give to this war as opposed to the previous one.
There is no greater gift that you can give to this effort than your only son, Avery. I'm so glad, he says very quietly, that you volunteered.
Well, I think Avery kind of like just gives him this like really hard look and says, "Well, it would be a waste to sit on the sidelines of this great conflict, wouldn't it be, sir?"
Oh, so very true, my boy. So very true. And he sees you at the door. I'm going to suggest that we take a break until about 1:15. And then we'll give you a chance to get to know one another in some scenes and then proceed. Okay? See you at 1:15.
I think I named Arthur Blake before I ever played a game with you, to be honest, Blake, just so you know.
So good. I'll have to work a donkey into the plot at some point.
Would be good.
But have you read the Pursuivants section in the rules now? It's like one of the last pages on the page 13 or whatever.
Oh, I read some a while back. I gather you guys have linked it into about 5 different games.
Well, Alan's now made it all about it's the Jotun weird, like that. The Pursuivants now date back to the Celtic times in the 5th century and all kinds of stuff. Next thing we'll play Alun Dark and it'll be like, you're on the USMC Pursuivants.
Who puts spiders on the lines and veils?
I'm not sure. People get freaked out by spiders. You never know.
I understand if you place a spider near somebody, but just talking about, it's like you can't say the word spider. It's like, come on, it's a spider.
Hey, if it was rational, it wouldn't be a phobia, right? I was just admiring your Pursuivant historical section in the new.
Yeah, well, I thought it was time I wrote it down, just to get it all out there somewhere.
Yeah, it's very deep lore now, all the way back to the 5th century.
Well, there is something connects all these games. Okay, so here we are again then. Is there anything that anybody wants to do before you leave on the troop ship? Anybody want to spend time getting to know somebody else?
This is going to be a scene on the troop ship, if anything else. It was more a scene between the 4 of us, I think, that I would like to have. Just a brief kind of like welcome to the mission, guys.
Yeah, I was going to ask them about their experiences with the occult stuff, what they've done or seen or heard of before.
That sounds lunch this afternoon or a drink tonight, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe a drink tonight, yeah?
Oh, I know just the Cockney pub for that. Some jellied eels. Let's get them down ourselves.
Lead on, Mr. Strauss. Mr. Carlyle. Mr. Carlyle, I hope you're not too accustomed to the gentleman's life. We will be roughing it as we head out into Africa.
I think I can manage, Mr. Blake.
Well, good. I would put that watch in your pocket, though, sir, before we head down.
Noted.
So there we are then in the back room of an East End boozer. There is probably somebody banging knees up Mother Brown out on an old Joanna in the front room. But Wilbur knows the landlady, and so you've got this tiny snug room at the back all to yourself. What do we see?
I think there's a table with 3. I'm coming back to the table with a tray loaded with brown ale, pints of, at least 3 pints per person, and bags of cooked pig skin, because who doesn't like a nice pork scratching, and some crisps for the ladies.
Crisps? Yeah. In 1941?
For the ladies. There we go, gentlemen. Let's get one of these down, yeah.
And as you go in, there'll be some local in the front room saying, "Oh, this booze has gone downhill since they started serving food."
Shut up and ate your pickled egg.
There is, of course, a poster on the wall that says, "Careless talk costs lives." But as is dramatically appropriate to any film of the 50s and 60s, that doesn't stop you talking about anything. So what's the nature of the conversation? Avery, how comfortable are you feeling here?
I think at the start, not the most, but I think as soon as like Wilbur came in with all these brown nails, I think like he just said, fuck it, and I think when he took the drink, he didn't down all of it. No, he's not that good. He's used to more supple stuff, but I think he definitely got through like half that pint in one go, and just kind of like let out a very ungentlemanly sort of sound.
Henry, this your kind of pub?
I'm thinking not. He's, sort of spends most of his time at Oxford with a bit more toffee people, so he sort of have half the beer and then he would just sort of nurse it. He's trying to relax, but kind of failing. He's a bit out of water.
I might be wrong, but I see Henry as kind of more grammar school than public school, and so maybe uncomfortable with both ends of the social spectrum.
Yeah, I figured he's a bit sort of, we'll go and teach Jerry what's going on, huh?
It's not Jerry we're going to be teaching a lesson to, Mr. Wright. Isn't that right, Mr. Blake?
Yes, Mr. Strauss. I fear in our line of work, the lessons are usually one way.
I totally agree.
And we simply hope to survive the classroom.
Don't worry, gentlemen. We've taken people of your social standing before, and we've made excellent operatives of them. Isn't that right, Mr. Blake? We've only got to think of my good friend, Mr. Worcester.
Ah, yes. It's a shame poor Bertie could not be with us, but perhaps our mission will fly all the smoother for it. Now, gentlemen, I'm confident in your abilities. Blue Dragon has vouched for you, and that's all I need. But I warn you, in the field, things may be somewhat stranger than you may be prepared for. And have either of you seen combat as of yet? Mr. White?
Not combat. I've seen plenty of injuries and
course.
helped fix those people, but not actually fought myself, no.
Of course. And Mr. Carlyle?
Well, it would do you a disservice for me to be nothing more than dishonest. So, beyond the odd lesson one would find at Alder Grove, not quite, Mr. Blake, not quite.
Well, I will say that in matters of the esoteric, I would beg that you defer to me. But Sergeant Strauss here is clearly is by far the most capable of us all. I have seen this man take down a whole German squad single-handedly, face down a tank from atop a church tower in occupied France. When you hear him say, "It's time to shit or get off the pot," you better be moving fast. In all matters tactical, we should follow Sergeant Strauss's lead. Agreed?
My job, gentlemen. My job, gentlemen, is to keep people with your kind of brains alive, because you guys are important. There's plenty of people like me, but you guys, you really do make a difference out there.
I beg
to
differ on the former there, Sergeant. I have yet to meet a single person quite like you.
Well, try to be individual. But yeah, I'll try and keep all you guys alive. Just keep your head down and do the job that the Pursuivants want you to do.
Avery, I am curious. How, what is the worst experience that you have had since war broke out?
Besides being forcibly recruited into this whole thing?
Yeah, besides that.
Besides that, okay, that's good to know. Hold on, let me double check their safety stuff. So I know. Yeah. I think though. When you say like worst, like is it like physical or?
Is there something that occasionally you wake up thinking about? Something that a scene of bombing or is anything at all? I'm just curious how much you've seen
of the war,
or the impact of the war on the home front.
Yeah, that's the thing. Until he got recruited into this agency. I'm actually not sure if he's seen that much. He reports in the newspapers. You hear his dad talking about that's an ungentlemanlike way to conduct war, that sort of thing. Hear like whispers in the country club until he came to the city. I'm not sure what the worst of it is.
That's fine. So he has not been touched by the war at all until this moment.
Yeah.
Fine. Fine.
Until talking to like people who've actually been there, like Wilbur and Blake.
So I'm imagining Avery listening. I mean, it's his natural, I think, demeanor to listen rather than just insert himself. But it sounds like he's listening more than talking. Henry, you talked about injuries. Is there a particular injury that sticks in your mind as something that was really, you wouldn't want to see that again?
Yeah, there was some shrapnel that went to the one guy got covered in shrapnel, although he lived. He just had lots of injuries, and I think it set off something in his nervous and circulatory system, and he had jaundice. And it wasn't just the skin that goes yellow; it's the white around the eyeballs goes yellow as well, and it's something you never want to see again. And it's just like, no, that's not right.
So sometimes you wake up with those eyes hovering in front of you. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I thought so. Would you like to roll for stress, please?
Four. That's above my current strength, I guess.
I think it is. Wilbur, which bit of
Gonna lose it before I get on the boat.
well, as I am increasingly coming to see, the only role of the GM in these games is simply to drive up people's stress. Wilbur, what's the bit of Operation Depth of the horror that you wake up sweating over?
I think it is memories of Cockney-speaking Germans in Dunkirk. I think it's that he really lost it at that stage in Dunkirk, and I think it's the reimagining of that experience.
Yeah. Roll for stress.
3. It goes up by 1.
Arthur, what about you? Which bit of that operation wakes you up screaming?
It's more
or
in
is
a
it
cold.
something since?
It's more in a cold sweat, and it is that our work on closing the Dreamlands gap has not been quite so fruitful. And who knows if we disrupted the Nazi attempts or what Projekt Prometheus may be up to. So I feel we're falling behind in the gap.
And what is it that you wanted to do that you think could have closed that gap that you weren't allowed to do?
If they'd let me have access to Agent Wotan.
Yeah, Agent Wotan. Where's she? Okay. So this is a good point for me to ask whether any of you are looking to engage with a bit of relief from the horror as the evening proceeds. If you look at this by way of a low stakes opportunity for you to look at the other moves tab, secretly from the horror, when the fiction allows and the GM agrees, describe how you try to reduce your stress. Whatever you do, there is always a cost. You will reduce stress by 1 and roll a d6 on one of those options. Fictionally, one of them at least is currently available, but I'm very happy for you to move the fiction in a direction that would allow any of the other ones to become relevant. Well, the ones that could. Anybody?
If you get drunk.
No, go on, Leandro. What does Avery want to do?
Yeah, I think the ale is getting to him. I think he's going to try and get drunk.
Well, I think the question is whether he tries or just does. But let's see.
Just...
So if you get drunk, so reduce your stress by 1, and roll the stress dice.
Okay. Oh, so I just reduce and then...
It's an automatic reduction. You always get a point of stress back. It's just a nature of what happens next.
Okay. Oh, that's a 6.
Wow. So on a 4+, agree with the GM whether you make a scene that attracts unwelcome attention, let something slip to the wrong person, carelessly wreck something important or meaningful, but you will indeed regain an extra point of stress because the release is that good. So which of those 3 options do you want to work with?
I think it has to be let slip. There's something slipped to the wrong person. I think let's see, who would I not want to know about why I'm being why I'm really here, which is
it
against my will.
It doesn't have to be a player character.
Yeah, but I kind of want it to be a player character. I kind of want someone
fine.
to start distrusting the agency as well. Who would not want that? Or at least who would be someone who would be like, no, I don't care, or like,
I think Arthur would be perhaps disappointed in the Pursuivants turning to such, or he would be. I mean, I don't know what his opinion is of you yet, right? But like, he's certainly the one who's the most attached to the whole idea of the Pursuivants, I think, who are blackmailing you.
Yeah, I did want to clarify that it is a group within the Pursuivants, not them as a whole.
Yeah, no, he's certainly not aware of even the existence of such groups.
Mm-hmm.
He's not that far in yet.
They're all terribly nice chaps, actually.
Exactly, yes.
All these Oxbridge folks. Yeah, so yeah, let's go with that. I think there is probably like a moment where like Avery will go get a drink for himself. But I think you can see that like he's swaying a bit. He kind of stands up and says, "Gentlemen, if you don't mind, I might just avail myself of more of this liquid of yourselves. Shouldn't be too hard of a trip."
I'll give you a hand, dear boy. I'll let you. I know the local language, lingua franca, if you follow my drift. Come.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I think it's not. You're not carrying me on your shoulders just yet, but I think you're definitely kind of leaning against you a bit.
Yeah.
And I think Avery's kind of like just babbling, and I think this is the most he's talked throughout this entire day, and he's saying like, "Mr. Blake, if you don't mind me asking, you seem to be one who's worked with the Pursuivants for quite some time. You seem to fit right in with their MO. So to speak."
Yes, I've shared their interests for some time without even knowing it. It appears, and when my time came to serve the country, they scouted me out, as it were.
Yes, they are quite good at finding individuals who would suit their needs. Would you say you're happy working for them, Mr. Blake, sir?
I think it is important work, Mr. Carlyle. Happy would be able to be with my dear Evelyn and our child in a world where bombs were not being dropped and darker things afoot. But in such a world, perhaps Pursuivants are the best place for my interests. And indeed, perhaps for yours. Tell me, do you have any of your own?
I think there's a moment where like Avery like clams up, and I think he just kind of like murmurs the word happy again. Happy. Well, I'm glad to see that does not go into the equation, Mr. Blake. I quite hope that you would help me be just a bit happier in this position. Yes, I do have, and he kind of like reaches into like into his pockets a bit, and I think he pulls out like oh, it's a cigarillo case, which is probably not the best place to put the picture of a little girl, but you can see like it's halfway depleted. This like silver like cigarillo case inside is like a picture of this like bright, happy 5-year-old girl.
What a sweetheart. Tell me, what is her name?
I think we, the audience, when this information is slipped on the way to the bar, will notice a man get up and walk out into the street. I will mark the mission clock to represent this leak of information. Sorry, please carry on.
Her name is Helena, and quite frankly, Mr. Blake, she's the best thing myself or my family has produced in this world, and I hope to see her again, should the Pursuivants let me.
Well, to be an even greater piece of work than the Carlisle radio sets is a fine achievement indeed, Mr. Carlisle. Here's to Helena. And
here's to our success. And he kind of like, he takes I don't know, someone just put a pint in front of him, and he just takes out and he says, I do hope, Mr. Blake, at the end of all this, you would put a word to them that it would be valuable for whatever happiness I might still have to be able to see Helena at least maybe for a day or so.
I have a word with... Dear boy. Is Helena... Is your daughter... You're not suggesting...
And I think Avery kind of like looks around, and I think I could be making the gravest mistake of my life here, Mr. Blake, but you seem to be honest and decent, and I am at my wit's end. So here, and I think he kind of like nudges his hand around you. I think he drops like a crumpled piece of paper into like your pocket.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we'll explain what that is, but not here in the open, for sure.
Yeah. I think I'll just pat you on the back and say, you have my word as a gentleman, sir. Come. Let us back to the table. He takes your pint away from you slowly.
Before you get to the table, I think, Arthur, there is sufficient fictional positioning there for this to be you looking for honest human contact.
Yes, but I don't have any stress.
If you want to take that risk.
I don't have any stress, though.
Oh. Then take him back to the table.
Yeah.
What about either Henry or Wilbur? Are you interested in letting loose a little?
I'm going to go for get drunk, but we'll do Henry first if you wish.
Henry, what are you interested in, if anything? There's no pressure.
No, he's not trying to get drunk, but he doesn't drink much, so he's getting drunk anyway.
Does he know what getting really drunk is like? Has he ever been properly drunk?
No, he's probably been a bit tipsy a couple of times at student get-togethers, but he's never been falling on the floor. No.
Sherry with the dean, that kind of stuff. Okay, then Henry, reduce stress by 1 and roll the stress dice on the if you get drunk table.
Four. So.
Are those dice moving for you?
Okay, we've gone down and come up again. It just kind of spun around in a circle.
Well, that's okay, as long as because it's just I know that roll for your party is still not behaving consistently.
The timestamp changed, but the dice didn't change.
Hang on, let me just try moving the. Yeah,
He
they're
definitely
working.
did wrong.
They're working. Yeah, so 4. So you get the stress. You get 1 stress knocked off. Agree with the GM whether you make a scene that attracts unwelcome attention, let something slip to the wrong person, or carelessly wreck something important or meaningful.
Sorry, there's a bit of a drop in audio.
You are looking a bit frozen, Blake. Just a bit kind of jerky.
All right, how's that? That better? Okay. I think once he doesn't realise he's drunk, so he starts. Maybe someone asks about what he's done and learnt at medical school, and he'll start bragging about how he can damn near bring people back from the dead from his vast array of medical knowledge and that. And he's a bit shit-faced at this point.
And I think probably we will see a cutscene later on in which someone is whispering to somebody else in a different boozer about this chap who says he's going to the Middle East and reckons he can bring people back from the dead. And then there's a whisper and a whisper and a chain of whispers, and then there's a kind of and we see a German officer unwrapping something that says agents believed moving North Africa, occult ability confirmed. I'll mark the mission clock. Mr. Strauss, the usual Legolas?
Oh, of course. Yeah, copious quantities of brown ale. So, the stress dice. Here we go. The mighty 6.
Well,
Get
that's
in
all very
there.
good then, isn't it? So,
That is.
Do you make a scene that attracts unwelcome attention?
I think so. So basically, it ends up with me doing a standing on the table, raising the crowd to knees up, Mother Brown, boiled beef and courgettes, such songs, and clearly it's going to descend into some kind of fist fight, basically a barroom brawl.
You spilled my pint, mate.
Exactly. You looked at my woman a bit fucking weird.
So are you sticking with get drunk, or are you beating somebody up?
No, we'll stick with get drunk, but
Okay.
I don't think I'll be welcome in this boozer again. We're talking not too much personal damage, but quite a bit of property damage.
And yeah, as I think you and Arthur kind of help Henry out the door, followed by Avery, the landlady says, "You, Strass, you're bored."
You. What can I say? What can I say, Doris? I had to release myself. Fuck you. There's plenty more boozers, love. Do one.
And as the telegram to German intelligence scrolls up the screen, it then says, accompanied by violent bodyguard. I shall mark the mission clock. And so, unless anybody wants to do anything else, we'll cut to the convoy.
I just wanted to ask a question about this part of the rules, actually. So on a 6, you still do one of those things. You just get an extra benefit from it.
Yeah, it's a 4+, and then the benefit at 6. Yeah.
Okay. I wonder if
because everything else is 4 to 5, or.
Yeah, that is not how I would read it in the rules as written. Just as a feedback thing. I think maybe like on a hit, choose one of these, and on a 6+ might be a better thing. But
okay. So, anyone want anything else, or do you end up being poured onto a troop ship in Glasgow, having spent the night train continuing drinking? Or does anybody have something they want to do? Okay.
I mean, I will read that note at some point on the thing that Carlisle is perhaps drunkenly. I think perhaps I will read it and I'll push it back into Carlisle's pocket before he sobers up. Perhaps he won't even remember telling me.
I will leave that to Avery to tell us if he wants the audience to know what's on the note now, or whether we simply know that Blake knows.
I think the audience can know. I think it's actually a letter, and in defiance of how these clandestine types work, I think it's typed out in official Pursuivant stationery, with the seal or everything. I think just to make the point that no, this comes from us. And I think it's a short 2-par, even maybe just 1-par update from. And I saw in the chat that Will had suggested the name Black Dragon. Just saying Helen is fine. Helen is doing fine over in Devon. Nothing to report. Best wishes, Black Dragon.
Because it was only safe to evacuate her with the other children, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely safe. Yeah.
Paul has actually sent me some potential Pursuivant notepaper, so I'll try and knock you something up for next time. Fine. So the convoy. You are the Empire Princess, one-time middle-ranking luxury liner, now home to 2,000 squaddies and you lot. En route, they don't know where they're going, but you do. And it is about 3.5 weeks later that you will, along with the rest of the convoy, we think, but we'll find out in a minute, will arrive at Cape Town. Henry, what's the worst thing that happened on the voyage?
I think some of the food was dodgy. I got the trots.
Okay. Avery, what's the best thing about this voyage? And that may be a very low bar for best.
Somehow they had hot food, which was probably a minor miracle in the grand scheme of things. But it was nice.
Arthur, who died?
A midshipsman was knocked overboard in one of the tied pieces of machinery came loose and it swung into him and knocked him clean over the board, broke his legs, and he drowned before anyone could get to him.
Wilbur, what was most frightening about the lifeboat drills in case of U-boats?
I think it was them getting smashed, against the side of the ship. Again, reminding me of those guys that died in Dunkirk.
Oh, that's a pretty traumatic raw memory for Wilbur, isn't it? Would you roll for stress?
Okay, probably not in the grand scheme of things. I've seen a lot worse, but yeah, sure. 2. That goes up by 1.
So 3.5 weeks to Cape Town, 3 or 4 days waiting for the ship to take you on around the Cape to Suez. And I think we cut to you leaving the troop ship at Port Tufik at the head of the, just before the Suez Canal sets off through the desert. Are you in uniform or are you civilians at this point? Avery, civilian or uniform?
I guess the thing is he kind of defer to the actual veterans of this.
Okay. Wilbur, uniform or not?
I think uniform. It's
Arthur,
a troop ship.
I'm not sure you hold the Queen's Commission, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a uniform in your trunk. Uniform or civis?
I think we will go with uniform because we are safely behind British lines at the moment, and so we will stand out less by being in uniform than we would do otherwise.
Cairo is safe as houses. Henry, uniform?
Yeah. He feels like he's earned it. He's on the boat.
And I dare say his insignia will display medical corps, so he'll be an officer, a lieutenant probably.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Avery, uniform or not?
Yeah, I think Avery will go like uniform, but it is kind of like an officer's kind of garb. I'm looking at a bunch of pictures of Montgomery. Not exactly that, but kind of on that vein.
Okay. So at this point, I think then I'm going to ask you, in terms of what you're carrying with you, are you lightly or medium? I think it's very unlikely you'll be heavy loaded. There'll be a set of trunks, I guess, that will get put on the train. But are you light or medium loaded at this point?
I'm going to go with medium.
Henry's gone with light. Wilbur? Medium and medium. Okay. Just in case. So there's a train from Port Tewfik. It takes about 2.5, 3 hours, I think, to get to Cairo. And the only instruction you've had is here's the central train station in Cairo. And the instruction you've been given, oops, Daisy, here, is that you need to get to what the briefing said was the Rustum building down here in the Garden City. So I'm guessing you just ask a taxi driver to take you there. Is that, or is this going to be more complicated than that?
No, Arthur speaks passable Arabic, so.
And noticing your English accent.
Pay attention to landmarks on the way and stuff.
Okay. Recognizing your English accent and keen to practice his own English, he leans over and he says, Rustum building, yes?
Yes, my friend.
Yes, the secret building. And off he goes at
Indeed.
pace. And for the benefit of Henry, you make your way down this main avenue here and then turn through the city and then down Sharia Kasar El Haini, I believe, to about here, where he pulls up sharply and as he's getting the bags out says, "Secret building."
Indeed, my friend. Best secret in Cairo.
And it does appear to be simply an office building.
Well, gentlemen, as much as I've enjoyed working on my tan out here, perhaps we should go and say hello to our friend from the Midlands. Of
course, anyone traveling by taxi, they all know where the SOE is based, so I'm going to mark the mission clock. And Tubby Birmingham is a slightly balding, slightly sweaty chap who's was expecting you. Please do come in. Our cover is import-export. People come and go all the time. And he takes you into his office where somebody brings in enough chairs for you to sit down and says, "Well, how can I help?"
Not a taxi driver was very happy to bring us to the secret building, Mr. Birmingham.
Yes, it's a cunning ploy, you see. We let them think that. And then we double bluff, Jerry.
Indeed. I've heard great stories of the SOE's activities here.
Well, I mean, I've been here since 31. And so designation changes, but job's the same, keep on top of the others.
And are there any
medical records?
Say again, Henry?
Do you have the medical records?
Of this chap, Richie? No, I'm afraid not. We thought that might be a bit obvious if we went out and started raiding filing cabinets. But I've arranged for you to go out to the hospital tomorrow and interview the man face to face.
Okay.
And any word of our friends from Bavaria?
And he looks entirely blankly at you.
The Germans, dear boy. The Germans.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Oh, Jerry. Oh, sorry, yes. Yes, bit of a stink, actually. The Italians are as good as given up all round. But then some bloody Germans arrived, put a bit of stiffener in them. Some chap called Rommel. So yes, it's all a bit change. It won't matter to us, of course. I mean, he'd have to cover, well, goodness me, thick end of 2,000 miles to get here. I mean, that's not going to happen, is it? Ha ha ha!
No, of course not. Say, dear boy, do you have any whiskey? My friends are rather parched.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I should have offered you a drink. And he, little electric whiskey and soda all round, please. And he kind of leans to Blake and he says, for your man as well? Looking at Wilbur.
Of course. Sergeant Strauss takes a double. Neat.
That's 3 a double and my usual, please, dear. So look, I've fixed you up with a billet. And so what I suggest is we have a drink now. I'll see you off to the Bristol where you're staying, and then perhaps we could meet for dinner and talk through anything else I can do to help.
Of course. I did have one question. We thought we'd come in the full clobber, since we were disembarking from the troop ship. Less questions asked, blend in with the crowd and so forth. But as a man on the ground, what would you say would be the appropriate attire? What's in fashion here for the undercover operative?
To be honest, and again he looks slightly sideways at Strauss in his sergeant's uniform, I'd assumed civilians and officers when I arranged the hotel. Terribly sorry, old chap, but it officers and gentlemen. So perhaps civvies would be the best option.
Well, Mr. Strauss, gentlemen, if you wouldn't mind, we will take our change here before we depart.
Oh, certainly. And his assistant will see you to some room full of dusty files where you can change out of uniform and into civvies.
Yes. I apologise for that, man, Mr. Strauss. What an terrible arse.
Tubby by name seems tubby by nature. The fat bastard.
Yes, well, it does seem to at least know his patch somewhat.
Well,
but
we can forgive him.
Does anyone want to do anything with the afternoon, or do we cut to the hotel or even dinner with Tubby?
I think occasionally I'll just look around outside and stuff, like through the shutters or whatever, because after the taxi driver said, I'll take you to the secret place, I'm a bit paranoid because that's not right.
Okay, I guess that what you are wanting to do here is to roll to investigate, because the investigate move allows you to ask me questions. So I think that given that you have tradecraft, so the option to observe without being observed is in your expertise. So you're rolling the white dice, you're rolling the orange dice for expertise. Do you want to include your stress dice to increase the size of the dice pool?
No, not yet.
Okay, then roll the white dice and the orange dice, and it's the highest number that we want to know.
6.
Oh, well, right. So, on a 6, you get the bare minimum, and you also ask the GM 2 questions. So the bare minimum is that I think that the building is being watched from the park opposite. There's a chap with an open newspaper who has not moved. You spotted him out the window of Tubby's office, and he's still out there when you come out having changed to have a close look. to have another look. So that's what I will tell you. That's the basic information. You can ask me 2 questions.
So what reminds me of the horror of the war?
We'll come to that one.
Is anything here sus? Like, do I think the Tubby or his secretary is a double agent? Are they too helpful or are they too attentive to detail, sort of thing?
I think I can tell you that Tubby is dangerously indiscreet, but I'm not sure that there's enough calculation in it, frankly, for him to count as an agent.
That's still useful.
Yeah. One question down,
right,
one to come.
I'll say to them. If we were attacked, would this place be a suitable place to hide, or is it too easy to break into, sort of thing? How secure is this building?
I think that it is genuinely an office building. You didn't notice anybody on the door, so to speak. I mean, there was an Egyptian commissionaire, but he didn't look to be armed. So if somebody wanted to take this building, you think they could with a bit of grit.
All right. Well, I'll say to Arthur Blake, I'll say, there's a guy at the newspaper in the park that's been watching us for a while. This building doesn't seem terribly safe or secure.
No, before you decide what to do with that information, Arthur, I will now go back to that 6. So as well as 2 questions, it says, but also say what reminds you of the horror of the war and or grants you an insight into the horror of the secret war.
There's probably some injured people in the street. People have been, had legs blown off or by injury.
Cairo is safe as houses. It's well beyond even the Italian bombing range when they were in their forward positions. It is literally safe as houses. It's 2,000 miles to the front line.
Maybe they're moving, artillery pieces and stuff through the streets. I can hear that happening in the distance or something.
Yeah. And given that this chap Rommel's arrived, it just strikes you that there's a little bit more urgency in the movement of those troops than perhaps you got the impression of from Tubby. So would you roll for stress, please? 6 is such a mixed blessing.
1, so I guess
safe as houses.
Fine.
Okay, anybody want to do anything?
If Mr. Wright has told us about this, I will. As I think we get back into another taxi outside and we're pulling away, I will surreptitiously point it out to Mr. Strauss, and I will say, "May picked a little tale."
I think we should deal with this gentleman.
Well, how would you like to play it, Mr. Strauss? I defer to your expertise. Thief catcher and life taker, as I presume.
I think nothing too obvious. I think the good old commando knife could be calling this man a visit between his ribs, possibly.
Well, I leave it to you, sir.
I will get in one side of the taxi, but just go straight through and exit the other side of the taxi, blend in the crowd, and try and go round the back of this guy sat on the bench with his paper.
I think this is probably best resolved as a roll to do something else.
I think so.
Yeah. So you don't have tradecraft, do you?
No, but I have hand-to-hand combat. I want to stand.
You do. So, I guess what I'm trying to judge is, does he see you coming? Because if you can get behind him, you can take him.
Was he not a child criminal who became a copper? And what did he do before? Would that not perhaps come into it?
Then roll with expertise. Do you want to include your stress dice?
No, I just think the 2 dice would be perfectly fine. Here we go.
Okay.
A 1 and a 4. Just tilted off that 6.
On a
So
4.
a 4. Yep.
You succeed with no obvious complication or benefit. So we see you slide out the car, go low, join some locals crossing the road. You get round behind the guy on the bench. He is at your mercy. What do you do?
Yeah, basically I'll come up behind him. So he's sort of sat there reading his paper. I will drop the knife on the other side of the bench, so from behind, so I'm now next to his body, and in the ribs, upwards to his heart, and then basically I'll just put my hand over his mouth, and then just slowly lie his head to the side, sort of roll him onto his side. Look, he looks like a bit of a down and outie. Lay his paper over his wound so it's not touching it, and then I'll rifle his pockets and then walk away. I'm not going to really look at what I've got until I've got back in the car.
Okay. Now, if you check out the mission tab, you will see that the GM will mark all the suspicious and alarmed boxes if a PC demonstrates there are serious threats, such as when an enemy authority figure hears gunfire or comes under fire, there's a credible risk, or someone important to the occupation, including any soldier, is found to be missing or is found dead. I'm just going to put that on the shelf, but I want you to know it's on the shelf.
I mean, technically, we're the occupying forces.
You
aren't we,
are.
here?
You are.
Yeah.
You are. That's why it's just on the shelf. That's why there are not screeching, Gestapo cars arriving now. So it's on the shelf. I just want you to know it's on the shelf. I think probably no. I will leave. I'll just mark one box for when they notice an agent is missing, because I think that when you get back in the car and look at what you've rifled, this appears to be he's listed as Spanish, a Spanish businessman in Egypt. Spain at this point is neutral. Classic cover.
One of Franco's boys, eh? Well,
They might as well be bloody in the war. Propped up by Germany.
Certainly, if you listen to Mr. Orwell.
I'm going to call a 5-minute break there. Back at 10 past the hour, and we will go to dinner. Yeah? See you in 5.
I'm enjoying the espionage sort of stuff. I often think looking at Achtung Cthulhu is that like the clock and all of that stuff kind of puts me in mind of that like sneaking around occupied France and things like that. But because we'd usually been doing like one shots or those published adventures, it's like more commando raid than secret agent. You know?
Yeah. Because I wanted to try and make what is shaping out to be the last playtest. Just a chance to try it in a number of different ways. There may well be machine guns at some point. I don't want to disappoint Wilbur too much by just having you sneak about and knife people in parks in broad daylight. Let's just hope he wasn't a Spanish businessman.
If he was, well, here's one for the Republic.
Okay, so I think, unless you are very keen to do something else, I'm going to cut straight to dinner. Yeah? Tubby will pick you up from the Bristol Hotel in central Cairo. The Bristol is, as I remember... Yes. So the Bristol Hotel is here. This is very much the kind of European quarter, if you will. Parks, hotels, consular and other services. But on the other side of the river over here, where Tubby drives you, it's a lot more edgy. And he's explaining as he's driving, oh, it's a fabulous place. You'll love it. You really will. And he takes you to the Kit Kat Club in Imbaba here. And the Kit Kat Club is a nightclub. It is thronged with people. There are, it's crowded at the bar. Think sleazy Middle Eastern nightclub. The dancing girls are Hungarian. The drinks are overly expensive, but he catches a young woman, probably one of those women waitresses with a tray of cigarettes, and says, "Marianne, my usual table, thank you." And you're led through to a nice booth in the corner of the nightclub, a good view of the stage, close to the bar, lots of comings and goings, and he says, to Marianne, he says, "Oh, Marianne, I must introduce you to Mr. Blake, Mr. Strauss, Mr. Carlyle, Mr. Wright. They're here from London," and proceeds to be dangerously indiscreet.
I think Arthur will cough heavily and lean forward and put a hand on Tubby's shoulder and be like, "Tubby, dear boy, please, manners are everything, but perhaps we might have a word?"
Yes, of course. Yes. Let's go to the bar.
Yes, Sergeant Strauss. Perhaps you could come with me to make this a convincing word, perhaps.
Certainly, Mr. Blake. Certainly.
Gentlemen, please avail yourself of the drink. This will not take long.
Avery, what do you and Henry make of this?
I think are we allowed to smoke in this nightclub?
I think it's kind of compulsory.
Oh,
the 1940s, you can smoke everywhere.
Oh, that's true. Very true.
They throw you out if you stop.
Well, Mr. Wright, this certainly seems a most salubrious place to be spending a night in.
We should be careful, though. When the waitress is out, I'm going to say I would appreciate if you forget our names, and I can slip her a £10 note or something.
At the Kit Kat, sir, discretion is always assured. And she smiles and a twinkle.
I think Avery will light up a cigarette. Now, if you don't mind me sounding quite a bit paranoid, Mr. Wright, it almost feels like we're being set up for something here. This is highly indiscreet.
Yeah. I don't feel any more secure than back at where we were staying. It doesn't seem very safe. We've got to be careful.
It is
Especially
really
with
odd
Tubby.
because, London is buttoned down. There's a curfew, blackout. Only some boozers are open all the time. And yet here it's like the war just never happened.
Well, Mr. Wright, I trust you can employ your fine observational skills used back at the secret building, I guess it was called, to keep an eye out.
Yep. But you seem comfortable chatting with people in social situations. You might be able to learn some things here, perhaps.
I'll try to mingle, but best keep our eyes on each other.
Yep. I'll hold the fort.
I tell you what I'll do, Henry, is if you want to make that roll to investigate now, then we'll know how many questions you have in your back pocket and you can deploy them when you want to. Does that seem fair?
Okay.
So
1
tradecraft
and a 6.
gives you expertise. Do you include your stress dice?
Yeah, I will this time, so I'll roll that as well. So
Roll all three, please.
don't really need to. Yep. So 6 for the base dice. Was the
Oh,
highest.
you are on a roll, aren't you? So the basic information is that I have to tell you, this place is just packed with shady characters. It is
Sweet.
clearly the place to see and be seen. So that's the basic information. But you have 2 questions you can ask me at any point. Simply tell me when you want to ask one. But because you rolled a 6, what is it that is kind of making you a little bit twitchy?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know if there's too much, but there's someone. I'm not getting the reflection from their eyes.
Fine. Then, yes, fine. So, would you roll
Which
for
is
stress
weird
then? Because
from
that's a
my
bit
medical
freaky,
back-
isn't it?
Yeah. Six. Sweet.
So, stress goes up by 1, Henry. Thank you for that. Remember, you have those 2 questions in your pocket if and when the time comes. Avery, are you going to go and mingle?
Yeah, I think I have like a glass of whiskey and a cigarette, and yeah, I think I am kind of making myself out to look like I do look like a bit of a target, but British occupied Cairo. It's probably not uncommon to see a well-dressed British man in this place.
That's entirely true. What are you hoping is going to happen as you mingle?
I'm keeping my eye out on Strauss, Blake, and Wright. I'm trying to, but it's hard, because there's a lot of people there. I'm honestly waiting for someone to make the first move.
Okay, so you've gone away from Henry, but your intention is to kind of cover. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I think that's probably roll to do something else because I can't think of a question per se.
Yeah. Can I actually ask, what does tradecraft mean?
Spying.
Ah.
Fieldcraft is military stuff. Tradecraft is spying stuff. Yes.
Nice.
Paul, I've replaced survival with fieldcraft.
Excellent. Sounds more sensible, really.
Yeah. One of my questions is, are we in immediate danger? Because I don't want what just happened to that guy in the park to happen to one of us. So that's what I'm kind of using that question
Okay. The answer to that at this point is no. You can't see someone maneuvering towards Blake and Strauss or towards Carlisle? Yeah? One question left. Avery, do you roll... You have expertise, so you're rolling the white dice and the orange dice. Do you want to include your stress dice?
Sure. Let's live dangerously. Why not? Wow, I got a 4 in expertise and a 1 on the other 2 dice, so that's not the worst.
Sweet. That is fine. You are covering. I will allow you to act first if anything happens. Yeah? Okay, Wilbur and Arthur, you've kind of... Blake's taken Tubby off to the bar and Strauss has slid out of the booth and followed you over. What do we see when you get to the bar? As Tubby says, what can I get you? Marianne can bring it to the table, but you wanted a chat.
I wanted a chat, yes, Mr. Birmingham.
Tubby, please, Tubby.
Tubby. Call me Arthur then, Tubby. And you can call my man here Mr. Strauss, with the respect that he deserves. Yes?
Oh, look,
now, I don't want to get...
And he turns to him and says, look, I'm terribly sorry if we got off on the wrong foot, old chap. Just finding one's way, what?
I'm going to so how I'm seeing this, I'll come up behind Tubby, and so me and Arthur can sort of sandwich him.
Yeah. Exactly,
So Arthur's on one side, and Wilbur's on the other side. Back to you, Arthur.
And so I think Tubby's rather uncomfortably trying to say this over his shoulder to you, because you're not letting him turn, is that my guess?
No. Mr. Birmingham, I don't know how things are done here in Cairo, but we are not about the business of introducing ourselves to the help. We're not, in fact, about the business of introducing ourselves to anyone who hasn't sworn an oath.
Marianne's one of mine.
Indeed. And everybody else in the room?
No, but she keeps an eye on things for me.
I would like...
I need her to know you're all right.
Tubby. Can I call you Tubby? And I won't wait for his reply. I'll be... Tubby. Now you need to keep your mouth shut. Because these are dangerous times, my friend. And I think you've gone a bit local on us. I think you've gone a bit native. So we're bringing a word from London. Shut it, Tubby. Shut it. Now, unless you want me to crush your balls like 2 little grapes, you're going to tell us in this room who are working for the other side. And then we're all going to go back to the table, have a nice little drink, and you're going to call it a night. Understand, Tubby? So I would like to intimidate.
Roll
Tubby.
to do something else with expertise, because intimidate is in your expertise.
It is.
Stress dice?
Why not live dangerously? Well, 4, 4, and a 4.
It is a normal success, but because the stress dice is equal to or higher than the highest dice roll, stress goes up by 1. And Tubby kind of looks at you and says, "Oh, I see." And he looks at Blake and says, "It's going to be like that, is it? I was just trying to be bloody friendly to a chap out of his on my patch. But all right then, let's play it by the bloody book." And he turns round and he looks across the bar and he says, "Spanish, Italian, German, bloody Yank."
Appreciated, Mr. Birmingham. We're not here to tell you how to do your business, but we are here to go about ours.
Well, you'll forgive me if I let you find your own way home then. And he storms out the nightclub.
I think that was necessary, Mr. Strauss.
Was that...
I truly think so, Mr. Blake.
Did you enjoy that, Wilbur? Because it sounded to me like you verbally abused, bullied, or shamed someone.
Yes, definitely given somebody of a higher social status than me a good dressing down. Yeah, I think that felt good. Yeah.
So you
I
could
would
reduce
like to
stress
roll.
by 1 and roll a dice if you really wanted to.
Yes. So let's have a roll of that stress dice. Well, let's follow up with another 4. You can never have too many 4s.
Agree with the GM a consequence for their relationship with you and or how the mission is put at risk as a result.
Well, either Tubby could be picked up by the opposition outside because he's now got nobody with him, if that's the route you want to go, or basically I am persona non grata with Tubby.
I think the idea of Tubby being picked up outside when he's on his own is absolutely on the money.
Why did you say that, Paul? Why did you say that?
He'd only come up with it himself anyway.
So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll mark the mission clock, shall I?
I thought you might.
So at this point, I think that I am able to tell you that the opposition are alarmed. The enemy are certain there are dangerous agents in the area and will be even more suspicious than normal. Expect the GM to confront PCs and make them avoid detection. The next step is arrest, where they come after you. So, Avery. After the little kind of... Happily, the Hungarian dancing girls and the Egyptian singer meant a lot of what Tubby was saying as he was pointing around the room was lost on the room. But I think it's fair to say, Avery, that you see 2 gentlemen in the corner putting their hands underneath their suit jackets. What do you do, Avery? Henry, you still have 1 question to ask me, I think.
Ooh. Well, it'll be... Oh, go ahead, Henry. Ask a question if you have one.
I'm still thinking.
Okay.
Down to you, Avery.
Yeah, it would be foolish of me to just go up to them. That would be ridiculous. So I think I will find Blake and Strauss. At least try to find them in this throng.
No, go for it, Avery. You know you want to.
An opportunity to prove yourself to these experienced men.
Ah, God. See, the thing is, if I had any other motivation besides blackmail, I would do that. But I have other people I care about. So.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. Yeah. So if it was thirst of knowledge or Queen of Country or anything else, probably Avery would. But
no, I think that's absolutely on the money. So what do we see you kind of make your way across to the bar where Strauss and Blake are just observing Tubby leave the room?
Yeah, I think I kind of emerge from like the crowd and holding a cigarette and just say, well, I don't know what words you imparted to Mr. Birmingham there, but I feel we need to regroup. There's 2 gentlemen over there who look like they're ready to force something.
Well, let us go collect Mr. Wright, and perhaps we'll see if this place has a back entrance, and we may... I think that Mr. Birmingham is rather a bit loud for our type of show, and perhaps it's up to us to make a more quiet route through Cairo.
Could these 2 gentlemen, though, present a opportunity? Maybe a tale on them, Mr. Blake? Not my area of expertise, but definitely some of the more subtle members.
Hi, Mr. Carlyle. Blue Dragon has told me that you are a most capable individual in such affairs. Family business, I think he once said.
Well, let's just say us Carlyles have been in the thick of things for quite some time. I can go on this endeavor if you wish.
Stay at the bar, Mr. Carlyle. We will regroup with Mr. Wright, and we will leave it in your capable hands.
Henry, time for that question before you leave?
Yeah, Yeah, the person with no reflection in their eyes. Did that person go and chat to the two people sitting down, or Tubby that left? Or
He
did
followed
they
Tubby.
just disappear? Right.
I think mechanically this is a void detection. Yeah. Now, is someone going to take the lead between the three of you to get you out the back?
Bagsy, not me.
Yeah,
I was thinking
will.
probably
I've got
Mr. Wright.
tradecraft.
Yeah. I think this is tradecraft, so it's going somewhere without appearing to go somewhere. Will you include your stress dice, Mr. Blake? Mr. Wright?
No.
Then go ahead. Roll the white and the orange.
4 is the highest.
Okay, so on a 4, you don't attract any unwanted attention. So you slip out the back. Avery, the two gentlemen move to follow. What do you do?
I think I am going to just try to suddenly move my way through the dance floor, holding my whiskey, and I think I'm gonna as soon as I get close to them, I start looking like I'm staggering, and I think I'm gonna try to bump into them and spill whiskey all over them.
Very good. Roll to do something else to see whether this blows up in your face, perhaps.
All right, and this one expertise, and you know what? Yeah, sure. Let's add some stress. I've not had as much stress compared to everyone else. Sure, why not? Okay, so that's an expertise at 4, and everything else is a 1. It is the exact same dice roll I made, and we know this isn't a fluke because we've had a couple of dice rolls in between. That's amazing.
Tuesday nights are being much kinder to you than in my recent recollection, Leandro. So yes, that is success. You whatever you wanted to happen happens. So what are you hoping their reaction is going to be?
I think when I kind of bump into them, I kind of I gotta put on my best drunk voice, going, I'm sorry, apologies, sorry, I've been, I'm sorry about that. Let me and I take out a sheaf of tissues from my coat and I just kind of try to wipe them down. Basically, I'm trying to keep their attention, for sure.
And I think you've succeeded in doing that, so the others get away scot-free. And then they leave. You might just have caught one of them saying to the other, in cod German, English a Schweinhund. And because it would be genre appropriate for them to do that. And they try to find what's happened to Strauss, Blake and Wright, but to no avail. So Avery, the deal was they were going to make their way back. What are you going to do?
I'm going to follow them.
Okay.
These two lads.
Okay. So I'm seeing Strauss, Blake and Wright discover. I think Tubby's car is gone. Because I think for it to still be there would raise too much suspicion given your intention is to get back to the hotel. And so you hoof it down to the nearest tram station. And there a taxi will take you where you need to go. And Avery, these two goons, go outside, they hail a taxi and get into the taxi and it drives away. What do you do, Avery?
I would wait for an hour at the tram station.
Say again?
I think I would wait for an hour at the tram station just to make sure in case Avery needs backup or we'll meet there sort of thing.
Okay, so is that's just you or is that Strauss, Blake and you?
I think
that's just me because there might be another team sort of following. I thought it'd be better with them.
No, I'm not sure whether we'd split it up at this point. Knowing that we're perhaps under. We'll wait at the tram.
Split up, each on his own. Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean.
The tram thing for an hour.
Now you'll both be on your own.
On.
Yeah.
Well,
so we just played at the tram place for an hour. And
But, so it's up to Henry,
I can
right?
cut to the chase here, because I'm very happy to report that, of course, their taxi heads in a different direction of the tram station. So, Avery, what are you going to do?
Follow that car.
No, I think this is the part of like, okay, now I need to bring myself to these folks. I am going to hail a taxi, and I'm going to command this taxi driver to follow that one, and I'm going to press him as much money as I have in my wallet, which is a lot, because I can afford to.
I am happy to say that is the first time in a large number of hours playing this game that someone has got into a car and said, follow that car. So I think this is probably... What's your intent, Avery? Catch him and do something, or simply be able to ask me some questions about where they go?
Yeah, I think the latter. Well, I do kind of know where they're going, or at least, yeah, where they're stopping. I don't think I want to catch them entirely, but more like just so we know where they are, so we can investigate that further.
So I think this is investigate rather than do something else. So go ahead and roll. You have expertise. You have tradecraft, and so you've picked the right taxi driver. Do you want to include your stress dice?
Yes. Yeah, I can still afford to do so. Okay, now I rolled a 5 on that stress. So there we go.
Well, there we are. So that is success. Gives you 1 question, but you do increase your stress by 1. And the basic information is that they drive to... Where did I put it? Oh, yes, I know where. They drive to the Egyptian Museum. So, yeah. So up here is where the club is. Make that a bit bigger. Up here is where the club is. The others will have taken a taxi to their hotel or still be loitering at the tram station. Your tail takes you down this side of the Nile and across to the Egyptian Museum, where they get out of the cab and go inside. Yeah? Do you want to ask me any questions? Well, you've got 1 question to ask.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. What question to ask that wouldn't entail me having to go inside, or maybe we can frame it like that.
I mean, you never have to ask me a question. It could be a question like, would I recognize them again if I saw them?
Ooh, yeah, that would be good, actually. Yeah, can I see like their features so that I can find them in the future?
There's no blackout in Cairo. Everything is lit up. They stop under a street light to light some cigarettes, and they are illuminated perfectly for you and the audience before they disappear inside the museum. Yeah? Now, having waited at the tram station, no sign of Avery, a sudden thinking that if Mr. Turing could come up with some kind of portable communication device, it would be really helpful. But alas, not yet. Henry, what do you do?
Well, the best thing we can do is go back to the base because we don't know where he is. So he can call us there because there are phones, aren't there? There's landlines.
There are. So back to the Bristol, where I think you'll probably find Avery fretting, where the devil have you been? Because he gets back much quicker than you do.
See, Mr. Wright, I told you the boy would be fine. Mr. Carlyle is quite capable.
I think Avery's idea of fretting is smoking more than 1 cigarette in front of people.
1 in each hand. Now, I think that's a reasonable kind of episode finish, unless someone's got something really they're very keen to do this minute.
Do you want a stress relief, Henry, at all? I mean, we're back at base. We could, we could always have a drink.
That always goes so well.
No, he doesn't want to drink after the last one. Um, I think he's going to try and secure the base, and in terms of move documents away from desks that are next to windows and stuff like that.
Let me be clear.
Just
I think
shuffle
you're back at
furniture
the
around,
Bristol
stuff, try and
Hotel.
secure that.
I didn't think you were going back to the SOE building.
Okay, no, sorry.
But I could have got that wrong.
Okay.
Certainly, that's where I think we would be heading back, because we don't actually know that Tubby's been taken. That's a metagamey thing, don't we? So, like, we'd have no reason to go to that Fat Oaf's office again.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Let's go to the hotel. I don't know. I got a feeling he's into what do you call it? Laudanum.
Oh, yes. That medical bag serves a variety of uses. So let's have you try to numb your pain with morphine, laudanum, or cocaine, etc. So reduce stress by 1 and roll the stress dice.
Okay, so this is going very slowly. Okay, 6 roll stress, 6.
Oh, a 6. Okay, so 4 plus. Agree with the GM whether you push someone who cares about you or is important to the mission away. Overlook a crucial deadline or event that puts the mission at risk. Steal something that's important to someone you care about or to the mission that you think is valuable or you could trade later. Or something else.
You could steal Avery's cigarillo case.
Or the letter.
I didn't know about the letter. Oh no, I thought maybe the guy without the reflection in his eyes. I see him in the hotel, but I don't tell anyone.
Oh right, yeah. So you've been
too busy.
Right. So you've been followed.
I visually recognise him, but I'm thinking, no, I want to get my shot.
Fine. So we see that you have been followed, as well as Avery having followed, and I think that's appropriate to raise the mission clock to arrest, just in time for next session. Okay. Anyone else?
No,
goes down by 2, Henry, by the way, because you rolled a 6.
Yes, it was really good. That was some kind of relaxing trip.
I was wondering, how do we lower the mission clock effectively?
Well, I'll read you what it says. It says, the GM may clear marks in the mission clock if they feel the PCs have lain low for long enough and or made a significant move to a new location.
Okay, so we need to be discreet next time and...
Or change hotel.
We'll worry about the detail of that next time.
I think that's definitely going to be on the top, because I don't really trust anything that fat that fat bloke has...
Toady.
Yeah.
Then roll credits, yeah? Until next time. Okay. I would welcome a quick scamper up and down in terms of stars and wishes. I'll keep thorns for maybe the second or third session, but at the minute I'm interested in roses and thorns.
Alan, did you want to do the things that are on the character sheet that aren't filled in yet?
No, I don't.
No, okay, that's fine.
I want to do that at the start of the next one, because I think you've got a feel for one another now, and so I think if we come to that at the first point next time, we can build some, how the dynamics between the team work. Yeah. Or do you want to do it now? I mean, I shouldn't close you down. Shall we do it now? Let's do it now.
It feels like it'd be fresh now rather than...
Very true. Okay, let's start with Arthur. Which
It's an obvious one for which member of the team I care about the most. It's, unfortunately, sees me through trouble. My right-hand man is definitely Wilbur Strauss.
Wilbur, why is that? Is it that you just back him up?
Oh yeah. I'm not a thinking man, so when he asks me to do something, I know it's the right thing to do.
Okay.
You know, when he asks me to put myself in danger, it's like it's for a good reason. When he asked me to lean on Tubby, it was the right thing to do.
Okay. And Wilbur, is that reciprocated? Is Arthur the member of the team you care most about?
Yeah. Well, I sat on a boat with these two guys, and I got drunk with them, Henry and Avery. You know, I've got a history with Arthur. He's always seen me right. He's clearly got a bit of a better moral compass than me. So, yeah, currently I affiliate more and I care more about Arthur.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
So Arthur, is that what you think? Is that why we?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree. I agree on that. Yeah.
Henry, which member of the team do you care most about? And then ask them why.
Oh, okay. I would say Avery.
Okay, Avery. Why do you think Henry?
Why?
Avery, why do you think Henry relates best to you?
Probably because we're both educated and we're both new to this. I think that's the simplest way to do it. Clearly, there's a camaraderie and experience that Mr. Blake and Mr. Strauss has in this field, and I think having had that chat, but quick chat in the nightclub, just to confirm that we share kind of like the same sort of suspicion on here, kind of like put it in Avery that like, okay, there's a rapport here, which is nice.
Spot on. So am I inferring that is reciprocal, so that for Avery, Henry is the person or not?
Who? Yeah. I think if it was the other,
it doesn't have to be reciprocal. They can care about you, and you needn't care as much about them.
Yeah, I feel bad. Yeah, it's
No, it could be Arthur Blake.
Yeah, it was either going to be Henry or Arthur. Honestly, for sure. I think I'll probably lean more towards Arthur.
Fine, Arthur. Why do you think that is the case?
Because he sees me as perhaps he doesn't remember the full drunken confession, but the motivation that was there that made him make that confession remains with him, and it's that perhaps as someone, an ally within the Pursuivants, you know.
Is that okay, Avery? Can you knock that into a sentence?
Yeah.
Let me go back to the other end then and say to Arthur, well then, who do you care least about? Now, let's be clear. This doesn't necessarily mean care nothing about, but on a scale of 1 to 4, they are number 4 in your considerations.
I think, honestly, that currently it is Mr. Wright.
Henry, why do you think Arthur feels that? What has he seen? What have you done that leads into that?
I haven't proven myself in a way that he values.
Yeah, that seems very sound to me. Wilbur,
my only other addition to that would be you haven't proven yourself, and we dilly-dallied on that tram stop rather than come back. You're a warrior.
Just trying too bloody hard. What? Wilbur, care least about?
Avery Carlisle.
Avery, why does Wilbur care least about you?
Because the social gulf between us is incredibly vast.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. I thought that's what you'd go for.
Henry,
it is a hard. I must admit, it's a hard choice.
Henry, what about you? Care least. Care most about Avery. Care least about
Tubby.
If only somebody was playing Tubby, we'd be on a winner, wouldn't we?
I'm going to have to say Arthur.
Arthur, why does Henry care least about you?
I think because I he doesn't understand all this mumbo jumbo that I keep alluding to. Not yet.
Can you work with that, Henry? Okay. Avery, who do you care least about?
I think the lack of care is reciprocal in this regard with Mr. Wilbur Strauss.
Wilbur, is it the same reason? Is it that gulf?
Yeah.
He just thinks you're common as muck.
I am as common as muck. Yeah. There is a huge gulf between our two characters.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with being common as muck, but it's not nice being thought to be common as muck. So, okay. Thank you. That was the right time to do that. Thank you for nudging me in that direction. I was too keen to get to Rose's Stars and Wishes. So let me go back to Will. What any stars?
I very much. Well, we discussed earlier, I loved playing like the espionage side of this game. Being in enemy territory or at least kind of like hostile territory. Where we don't know.
Safest houses, Cairo. What?
Yeah, well, yes, but we like to have that clock. Because before we played it, we were pretty much always on the arrest alarm because we were about to go and blow stuff up with partisans and so forth. But this is a nice little,
Good.
Softly.
Good. Paul, any stars?
Clearly I've played with Arthur before, but I really liked how you two new guys sort of, introduced your characters, and I did feel a bit moved that scene in the pub. Everybody got on board with that. It'd been quite easy for somebody to say, "Nah, I'll just go back to my room." So yeah, to the other players, really good.
Thank you. On we go to Blake. Any stars?
Kind of everyone. I can really envision what everyone looks like because I've been gaming for 30 years and I've never played in World War era, but I can clearly picture sort of what these guys look like and how they move and stuff. So yeah, it's cool. It's quite vivid.
Good. And finally, Leandro.
Yeah, I really appreciate like the amount of like color that everyone kind of brought to this. Not just the sheer Britishness of that pub experience, which was amazing. Just like, wow, I don't understand what these words mean. What's a Johanna? I have no idea. I don't need to know. But yeah, not just that.
Joanna
like,
Piana.
Look, I don't know. Look, if it's not sang from the old triangle, I wouldn't know. Anyway, for those who don't know, I live in Dublin. But yeah, I just really love like everyone's just like how they kind of made not just the characters, but like every time Alan throw out a question to build the scene, the setting, it's just like there's a lot of like color and care, which I think really works, really helps an espionage game because it does make kind of like it kind of makes the setting detail, which kind of makes it dangerous because we're giving ammo to the GM here to like really twist the world around us, which is fab.
Yes, I'd like to thank you all for your generosity in that direction. It was very kind of you to just set yourself up for the stress rolls, and then go well. The stars to me is people kind of looking for opportunities to just build the stress relief into the fiction. So that was really nice for me. Thank you. Let me go back round and wishes. Will, what is Arthur wishing for?
I would like to do some stuff to lower that clock, just to explore that side of things, to be secretive and competent spies rather than just blabbing our stuff out in a pub in an East End.
Yeah, it must be said that by the time you were on the slippery slope by the time you left Glasgow.
Yeah, and I don't normally like to do like two of them, but I would also like to. I'm very much enjoying like the duo of Strauss and Blake, but I would also like to have us break into different pairs going forward at some points.
Yeah, I think that the dramatic tension of just getting into those more uncomfortable relationships would be great. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, Paul, wishes.
to use a machine gun in a music case. You know, if you're going to carry around a Bren gun in a bit of a hidden situation, it will need to be in a music case. So just to see where I can break that out.
I think, frankly, Paul, a Bren gun, you need a cello case.
Well, why not? Let's have the cello case then. I'm sure Tubby can furnish one.
Yeah, well, he might, but not to you. Let's move on. Blake, any wishes for Henry?
I don't know if necessarily for Henry, but maybe.
Oh no, yeah, anything.
Like a touching family or romantic moment, even in a flashback for one of the characters, just for a bit of contrast to the war and the occult stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I toyed with putting in the rules something formal about seek a moment of human contact. There's no reason why that couldn't be a flashback. Yeah. Fine. Leandro, any wishes?
I'm usually the last person to ask for more Cthulhu in a game, but I'm quite keen to start seeing some of the creepier stuff, kind of like the more occult stuff, kind of creep in. I like this sort of like intro for like, it's got a bunch of new characters going to this mission, but yeah, as much as Arthur wants to bring down that mission clock, I do like an atmosphere of like dread, of being like, okay, my character knows about this stuff, but hasn't really like, actually come face to face with anything horrifying.
I mean, I have to say, I was wondering whether he was going to go into the Egyptian Museum.
Honestly, I had an idea of like, oh, we'll see. I'll play this out, but I had an idea of Avery going up to those people and like offering himself up to them because he doesn't like the Pursuivants. That's the thing. That's just the thing. He's not there because he's here for God or country. If he had the choice, he would not be there. But we'll see.
Double agent stuff. Okay. My wishes are for just to see these characters carry on and see where this takes us. I've had a great evening. Thank you very much. I will stop the recording. So would you like to wave bye-bye to the internet?